In 1977, a man named Harvey Milk was elected the first openly gay man to be elected to public office in California. Now, Harvey Milk was a complicated man with stances I both do and do not agree with. But there's no denying that he was a presence. Milk was eccentric, outspoken, and animated, things that made the gay political establishment at the time very nervous. They wanted an elected official, but one that was more likely to keep their head down. During his time in office, Milk sponsored a bill banning discrimination against gay people in public accommodations, housing, and employment. The bill was wildly popular and passed 11-1 by the city supervisors before being signed into law by Mayor George Moscone. But less than a year after his election, Harvey Milk was dead, assassinated by the man who cast the only no vote against his bill, Dan White, who blamed the murder on his junk food binge the night before, a claim that was later deemed the Twinkie defense. I imagine after the death of Harvey Milk, the people of the Castro felt very much the same as the two men walking down the road to Amasis. The man who was supposed to lead them into liberation was dead. Imagine how surprised they were when they had seen Harvey Milk in front of them. But while Jesus was resurrected, Harvey Milk was not. Milk's ashes are currently being displayed in an urn at the California Museum in Sacramento. Harvey Milk is dead, murdered by a state official who served very little time in prison for his crime. Sometimes it feels like there is no one to lead us. There have been times I have wondered to myself, who is willing to step up? Who is willing to fight for us? Who is supposed to lead us into liberation? Harvey Milk is dead. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera are dead. Audre Lorde is dead. We often feel alone, abandoned by God and our leaders. It's easy to find ourselves losing hope. In 2012, when I was 20 years old, I hopped on a bus and joined Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street was a class-conscious movement hoping to end corporate corruption, Wall Street greed, and income inequality. I was young and starry-eyed with dreams of changing the world I had seen fall apart after 9/11. But when I got there, I realized my naivety and youth had blinded me. Activism was nothing like how I had been taught in school. It was painful, exhausting. I spent 8 months on the streets protesting and fighting, being slammed against walls by police and struggling to survive. Most nights were spent sleepless, and many of us turned to drugs and alcohol just to get some rest. Our movement faced the brutality of both police and Wall Street executives. It marched on through blizzards and hurricanes. Many of us were beaten, raped, or imprisoned. Several women went missing, and we still don't know what happened to them. People died or were injured so badly that they would never be the same, and yet we carried on. But between the infighting, the exhaustion, the addiction, the paranoia, and the grief, by January of 2013, a truth was being revealed to us we were no longer capable of ignoring. Occupy Wall Street was dead. But Jesus is not dead. The resurrection of Jesus teaches us that our leaders and activists and movements sometimes die, but their ideas do not. You cannot kill the spirit of liberation. It is immortal. Jesus lived on through Mary Magdalene. He lived on through his disciples. He lived on through the two men on the road to Emmaus. The spirit of liberation cannot be assassinated. It cannot commit suicide. It cannot be killed by drugs or disease. Ideas do not die. And in that way, neither did Occupy Wall Street, and neither did Harvey Milk. Unfortunately, the spirit of evil also does not die. The devil lives on as much as Jesus does. The spirit of oppression and the spirit of liberation are trapped in a war that has raged on for centuries. The devil lived on in the Nazi Party of Germany as they placed thousands of Jewish, queer, Romani, and disabled people into camps, killing, torturing, and experimenting on them. He lived on in every slave owner. He lived on in Christopher Columbus as he fed indigenous children to dogs. He lived on as queer people were lobotomized in asylums, as the KKK burned crosses on people's lawns, and he lives on in our modern Christian nationalist movement here in America. And while we cannot kill the devil, we can imprison him. And if we want to do that, his ideas can no longer be seen as a matter of public discourse. We must, as a people, decide that the devil's ideas are not welcome in a free and civil society. The devil's thoughts are not welcome in the free marketplace of ideas anymore. We have to cast them out. And while I believe that those taken in by evil ideas can be redeemed, you cannot have civil debate with the devil. The devil is not there to listen or change his mind. And here, he's there to trick you and tempt you and make you appear foolish. There are few people who can beat the devil at a fiddling contest, and it's best not to bet your soul unless you know you can succeed. The war between oppression and liberation is one we will likely have to fight until the end of the world. Evil people will give the devil keys to his own cage until there is no longer evil people. But there is always hope. Harvey Milk locked the devil away. Sylvia Rivera locked the devil away. John Brown and Rosa Parks and Dr. King locked the devil away, and so can we. Because just as Jesus lived on in the hearts of men on the road to Emmaus, the spirit of liberation lives on in all of us. Amen.